Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome. My name is Dora Taylor, and I'm one of the founding members of Parents Across America. If you don't know much about the organization, we were founded in January of 2011. There were 12 of us who were parent education activists. We met in New York City. We had a forum with Diane Ravitch and a press conference. And that's how we started. We were 12 members from around the country. Now we have chapters in 15 states, including 4 chapters here in the state of Washington. We have the one here in Seattle, one in Tri-Cities, one in Spokane, and one in Tacoma. What we do is we advocate for measures that work in education, including smaller class sizes, adequate funding, and also funding rather than privatization of our public schools. There's flyers out at the table regarding Parents Across America. Also, you can check out 2 websites, the national one, parentsacrossamerica.org, and our local one, parentsacrossamerica-seattle.org. What I would like to do is first introduce it, or just recognize a few people here. First, there's Katya Anderson with the Seattle Youth Commission. And Marty McLaren, who was one of our school board members. And I don't see Sharon. Oh, Sharon. Sharon Beasley, another school board member. Sharon, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, well. I should probably wait till after hearing what everybody else has to say, but I decided that I wanted to say a few things about what we're doing in the district that maybe a lot of people don't know about, because Seattle is a city that's afflicted with low self-esteem, and we really don't brag about things very, very often, and our school district certainly doesn't brag, and the media doesn't help us flaunt our successes. So I've been looking for successes in the district, and sometimes they just come right at me, and I'm intrigued, and I go out and explore them. And I decided to start by looking at the award-winning schools and see what they're doing that has gained them the recognition that they've gained. And so I started with the 5 schools of distinction. And just so, in case you don't already know this past year, Seattle schools won, 21 of our schools won Washington Achievement Awards. And these are given jointly by OSPI and the State Board of Education. And the awards recognize schools for overall excellence, as well as special recognition in language arts, math, science, graduation rate, and improvement in closing the achievement gap. And schools must show results over a 3-year period. Additionally, 5 of our schools were recognized by the Center for Educational Effectiveness as schools of distinction. And these schools are recognized for progress over 3 consecutive years towards bridging the achievement gap in both math and language arts. And the schools are Mercer, Alki Elementary, Hamilton International, Madison Middle, and Orca K-8. So I've been going around to these schools looking at what they have in common and what's unique to each school. And the common thread, one thing that they all seem to have in common, is that teachers collaborate in developing curriculum and teaching strategies, and they are focused on developing teaching strategies around standards. And this may seem quite obvious, but it's actually a significant shift away from using mandated teaching materials in favor of doing what works best for students. So instead of focusing on the mandated teaching materials, the focus is now on what do we need to do to get students proficient at the standards. And these teachers also collaborate on the use of assessment, and the assessment is frequent. So they're frequently checking to see, are the students learning what we're teaching? And if they're not, what do we need to do to be sure that they're learning it? Another remarkable success that I just discovered is at Beacon Hill International Elementary. Students in the Mandarin immersion math classes are excelling faster and farther than their peers taking math in English. And most of these students are just starting to learn Mandarin as a second language. From spring 2011 through winter 2012, 84% of Miss Wu's first graders were making typical growth or more in math, according to their MAP scores, compared to the all-day English programs, the English-taught math classes, where only 37% of the students made typical growth or more during the same period. As in the schools of distinction, Miss Wu has developed her own curriculum around state and Common Core standards, and her method is distinctly different than what is used in most everyday math classes. So all of these schools have started a trend of improvement that's leading the district in a new direction. Curriculum and instruction is now heading up a process of collaboration among teachers focused first on improving math. That's the focus that they're starting with. And teachers in the schools that opt into this process will work collaboratively in grade bands to develop teaching and learning around Common Core standards. And as I said earlier, this is a significant shift towards, number one, doing what works for students, and number two, standards-based teaching. So they're teaching to the standards, which is where the alignment comes in. And we are also, there were just a couple of other things. I was just at a Gates Foundation workshop today, and it's the third workshop I've attended in pre-K through grade 3, where the focus is heavily on social and emotional learning. And we are beginning to talk about how to integrate social and emotional learning into the entire K-12 curriculum, which is highly significant, something that really needs to be done and hasn't. And then one more item, we've received 14 applications for Schools of Innovation. Between now and October, they'll be going through a very thorough review process, and as these schools go online, we'll be looking at what is working in the way of innovation, and also what in the way of our own policies and procedures we may need to change in order to support innovation in all of our schools. There's no reason to be limiting innovation. So those are things that are going on in the district that you may or may not know about, and now I'm really interested to hear about what you all have to say, so thank you.
And also I want to recognize Jesse who broke in. Jesse is founder of Social Equality Educators. He just completed a book and he's on a book tour. The book is called Education and Capitalism, and he recently received the Abe Keller Peace Education Award in teaching. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'll just real quick, because I want to hear from everybody, but I'm so glad that parents across America organize this forum, and that they organize in general for strategies that work in education, because it seems like what's out there is billionaires look for what doesn't work and then give it as much money as possible, and then we're the victims and the kids are the victims of that. It's sad, but it's true. And I think, but coupled with that, looking for strategies that work, you also have to know what is the goal that you're shooting for, that you're looking for strategies around to help it work. So the goal for the billionaire education reformers is to get the next generation of people to work for them, right? That's one goal. Or I think a far better goal to enrich the lives of our kids is to address the real problems we have in society. We have a broken economy. We have endless wars. We have violence in the streets of Seattle. We have serious problems that need addressing, and you can't solve those by filling in a bubble sheet. There is no answer A, B, C, or D that can solve those types of big questions. The only way that you can solve those types of questions is to begin to develop an education system that's centered on creating civic courage, that looks at encouraging critical thinking, right? That is about collaboration, cooperation, and I was really glad to hear the social and emotional learning piece is going to be an initiative from the Seattle School Board. These are the types of things that our kids really need to address these big problems, and that's what we're trying to do in the Social Equality Educators as a group of teachers here in Seattle, to begin to organize both to teach in our classrooms along those methods, but to fight in Olympia for the funding to be able to have those types of programs in our schools.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Aiko Schaefer, our moderator for this evening. She's going to take it from here.
Great. Thank you. So I want to welcome everyone, also with Laura, for making time this evening to join us for this very important conversation. I'm Aiko Schaefer. I'm going to be the moderator tonight, and I'm pleased to be part of this conversation with you all. I'm a parent of 2 kids in the Seattle School District, and have been catching up on all the things the things that you have to know to be a parent. It's a lot of work. And so what I wanted to do first is talk a little bit about the goal for tonight, and I think the speakers who have already been up were really helpful to shape that, which is a lot of what we hear about when we talk about in terms of public education is often the bad news, the things that are not working, the shortcomings, the challenges. And tonight we really want to reshape the conversation a little bit and talk about what is working, what are the strengths of our public education system, why is it important to continue to invest in this that is part of our community and essential to our children and our lives and our families. So we're here tonight with a very distinguished panel for women who bring a tremendous amount of expertise, both formally and academically, as well as a lot of work that they have done in the community as parents and individuals active in their neighborhoods as well. So first is Marquita Prinzing, excuse me. And Marquita is a teacher at Sanislo Elementary School in West Seattle. And you're a student in the Seattle Public School system. So she is a product of our district and has a master's in education and continues to teach kids here in the Seattle school system as well. Also with us is Rita Green, who is from right here, Rainier Beach High School, graduated and now is a parent of kids in the school. Thank you for hosting us tonight. Rita has an MBA and is very active in the community, working with various needs faced by families and individuals here in Rainier Valley. So we're thrilled to have her here, but although we're here in your place, so we're coming here. And so next is Dr. Margit McGuire, who's a professor at Seattle University and the director of the Teachers Education Program. Also tremendous amount of expertise and knowledge around curricular development, specifically around social studies, and works nationally on a number of things around education and perspective from there. And finally, Sharon Okamoto, who is the principal and executive director of the Seattle Urban Academy, which is a private high school also here in Rainier Valley, and does a lot of work with at-risk youth and has been appointed by both governors logging repertoire to serve as a leader on decisions around public education as well. So 4 really impressive people. Thank you for making time tonight to be with us. So this is going to be the format. So we have some prepared questions. So we have one question that we will begin the conversation with. They have 7 minutes to answer. We have a timer who's going to let us know when the time is coming to an end so we can be out of here. The goal is to be out of here by 8:30. Then we're going to have 3 more shorter questions, and then we'll open it up to you all. And as Dora said, there'll be cards passed around, so if you don't want to raise your hand and ask a question, you can also write it on a card, and we'll get it up here and we can do it that way. So we're a pretty intimate crowd tonight, so pretty informal in terms of how that whole thing will work. And then the job is to be done at 8:30. Okay? Great. So the first question that we have asked the panelists is, as specifically as possible, give examples of some public school programs, and these are programs within public schools, that work especially with at-risk youth. What were some of these programs, and how did they achieve their success? And we'll just start going down the line, if that works for you.
Well, good morning or evening, so that just tells you how long my day was with the kids. Good evening, everyone. I am a 4th grade teacher at Sanislo Elementary, which is in West Seattle. We have quite a diverse group of students. Just for an example, I have a really small class size this year, which is exciting. But with 22 kids, only 4 of my students are white. All the rest of my students are literally everything else. There's a lot of ELL students in my class, and certainly students who are coming from the lower economic areas, as well as a couple of students with IEPs. And so that's kind of the classroom that I'm working in. And that's pretty representative of the school that I'm at as well. I will say that when I think of what's working and how I can tell that it's working is when I see students problem solving, when they're able to have access to opportunities and they know that they're seeking them out, whether or not they finally that they're seeking them out, so at some point they will. And then once they find them, being able to navigate the world, being able to converse with people that will help them, with those opportunities or find success in those. And so that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I try to create, especially in my 4th graders, is some independence and some ability to say, I want this, so I'm going to go get it, and here's how I'm going to go get it. And so that's kind of where I look at the programs that are at my school and whether or not they're successful. The big area of success, I think, in many schools, particularly in my school, is how we are able to collaborate with other outside agencies in the form of nonprofits typically, but sometimes also extensions of businesses where I have an interest in supporting students. And when I say businesses, I'm talking about small local businesses. So for example, as a 4th grade teacher, I teach 3 different science units. One is food and nutrition. So at the beginning of the year, we talk about what's in our food, and we do tests, and it's really fun. The kids find out how terrible hot Cheetos are, and hopefully I can keep that to last by the end of the year so they're not eating it. But with that activity, we're able to partner with a company called Beechers, if any of you have had Beechers cheese. And they have a side company that comes into schools and basically has a little program for the kids. The kids actually end up making chili, and of course they have huge fun there, but they also learn a lot more about food. And so it's kind of those sorts of connections and collaborations that are great. In winter quarter, we do ecosystems, and so we're happen to be lucky to be on a wetlands. Sanislo is built on the bottom wetlands of the Duwamish River. It's no longer flowing, but at some point it used to have salmon that would go there. And so that being a place that our kids are on playing at during recess every day, that's really an area that they can access. And so after we learn about ecosystems, we have Home Waters, which is a nonprofit, and they have since been partnered with Islandwood, and some of you know that as an awesome new place that has a lot of educational programs and whatnot about sustainability and our land. Home Waters comes and does a program with our kids, so they're actually able to go into the wetlands and actually use the knowledge that they're learning about in class and the models of our watersheds and whatnot in class to go out and practice that in our actual wetlands, our actual ecosystem that they're there or working with. We also had a community grant, some of the members of the community decided to start to restore the wetlands. And they were able to partner with our school as well. And so for the last 3 weeks, including tomorrow, even if it rains or shine, I make sure my kids bring their boots, we'll be outside, and they've been putting down mulch, they've been planting native plants, they've been learning about the native plants, they've actually adopted a plant, so they're going to be the researchers, and they're going to have to be able to share that knowledge with the students that are coming up and seeing those plants. But it's just a way that our students are really seeing how they can use what they're learning in a real genuine way, a way that can be extended as they go into other areas. If they have any interest in science or in hands-on work, like this would be a great opportunity for them to really explore that, even in 4th grade. Total different example, we work with the Writers in the Schools program, and so we have a poet that comes and teaches our kids poetry, and then not only do they teach poetry, but provides actual opportunities for them to share their poetry live and in front of the public. We have some events at school where they can share, but last year I had a student who was new to the school, and she was having some challenges writing, and through poetry she was able to present at Benaroya Hall in front of a huge audience, and that was just amazing, and that wouldn't have been an opportunity she would have had otherwise. And so those are a couple of examples. We do have instrumental music, and I know when I was in elementary school, I was able to be part of choir and in band, and I remember it being an actual part of my day. I don't remember having to sign up for it or rent an instrument or only see my teacher half an hour per week. I think it was really something I was doing, and that carried all the way through college. I was a sophomore at Seattle University, a junior at Seattle University, singing in the choir there, so that was something that started in elementary school for me, and that definitely hurts my heart to know that that's not something that all our kids have access to. But I will say that the ones that have access to it in my school this year has an extension through the Seattle Youth Orchestra that comes in the morning and after school. So in addition to their Friday half an hour kind of, sounding like screeching cats, they're able to really work on it with musicians that are in orchestras and that are performing and really showing them that technique and really building that discipline in them and getting them excited about it. So that's been an awesome partnership for them as well. And I've seen other schools that's been able to partner with other programs that are culturally competent. When I did my student teaching at Roxville Elementary School, also in West Seattle near Roxbury Road, kind of in the south end there, have a lot of Latino students. And one of the things they were able to partner with is El Centro de la Raza to have a Spanish literacy tutoring after school. And the theory, which proved to be correct, is that if a student can read in their native language, they would learn how to read in English much better as well. And so this was kind of a way of making sure that not only were the kids building confidence in who they were and able to keep their language and keep their culture and really share that, but it was also including their academic skills and reading as well. And so it's these partnerships and the possibility of these partnerships, especially in the age where we're losing funding left and right, and although all of us can say how important it is that we fund education, it never will fully be funded with all the programs that we would hope us to have. We are so rich with nonprofits in Seattle that provide amazing alternative programs, tutoring, working with families, providing parenting support, teaching parents about their school system who either are new to the country or just new to Seattle. And when our school districts can't provide that, that's where we need to start going to, is people who are already connected to our community and helping them be connected to our kids in our schools.
Hi there. So I'd like to say I'm an accidental advocate, and that is when my son entered public school, he came home every day in 6th grade saying, they're not teaching me anything. And I'm like, well, what are they doing down there? So that's what started my campaign to make sure that kids, specifically kids of color, are getting what they need in the classroom. And so I'm going to talk only about my knowledge, seeing that I'm a parent from Mercer Middle School, because that's the middle school that my son went to, and what we're doing here at Rainier Beach High School on some of the things that I think are working well. So at Mercer Middle School, we did have an after-school program where people came in and they did poetry. And what they did was, it was rap poetry because that's what the kids could relate to. So that really helped them with their writing skills and their speaking skills. And then at Rainier Beach, we have a lot of good things that are going on. We have an after-school program, which is really great. I think that our kids need a lot of extra help, so this is available to all students in the school. We also have MESA, which is the Math, Engineering, and Science Achievement with the UW and my alma mater, I'll throw that out there. And they work with our kids in math and science during school and after school, and so that's a really good help for them. And that's one of the reasons why Rainier Beach's math scores was twice the rate of what the district, and I really believe it's because of the extra work that we had with MESA and the great teachers that we have in our math department. And then we have a Saturday school, which is new this year, and that's every other Saturday. And we have teachers that are volunteering their time to come in and work with our kids. So this helps students who are either behind or who want extra help. And that's a really good thing that we're offering. And it's really too bad that that's not something that can be funded so that we could have that every Saturday. And we have a Route 180 program, which we know our kids are entering high school with a 5th to 6th grade reading level. So we definitely need to have extra reading resources for all the students that are coming in here. Some of the things that are coming that are going to be really helpful is our IB program. And I believe that that's going to be helpful because it's going to challenge all of our students. And our IB coordinator is here, Cohen, who's doing a really great job in his first year really getting it off the ground. So we are really looking forward to that.
I'm McGuire from Seattle University, and I have the pleasure and joy of preparing beginning teachers. And I was asked to talk about the successes of our program and how we go about preparing teachers. So I think what I'd like to do this evening is just share a few things that maybe you don't know about what goes into preparing highly qualified beginning teachers. And I want to emphasize beginning because those of us that have taught for a long time know that you continue to learn throughout your career. So there's no end point. There's always more to learn, how to do it better, how to be the best teacher you can be. I'm now 25 years at Seattle University, and it's been interesting to me to see the evolution of our program, which is a program for a master's degree. It's competitive to get into it, but here's some of the distinctive qualities of that program. I love that Sharon talked about collaboration because that's where we start, because we know that working together, supporting each other is absolutely essential in the field of education. We also know that you have to know something, and you can't learn that in 6 weeks, that's a lot of work. You have to know something about child development and adolescent development. You have to know about how people learn. You have to know different strategies, and you have to know that the program materials that look like just follow the script really don't work when it comes to working with real kids in real situations. So there's all the learning how to teach that's part of the program. But in recent years, we've found that we're starting to shift, and we're back to something coming out of the 60s. There was a statement called teaching is a subversive activity. And in our program, we're finding that we have a strong social justice. I mean, why in the heck are you here? What is your long-term goal in terms of being a teacher? How do you want to make a difference in the lives of the young people you will teach? And what we see putting beginning teachers into the field today is more challenging than ever before, because they do meet the pressures of teach out of this particular scripted curriculum. They're told that every child should be at grade level, which runs counter to what we know about child and adolescent development. None of us all learned to walk at age 1, and if we didn't learn to walk at age 1, no one told us that we were a failure because we weren't at grade level or age level. And this part is really hard, to help beginning teachers see there's a rhetoric and there's a policy out there, but let's not lose sight of kids and really going to what you know about what makes good teaching. One of the specific example that I work with my students is because my passion is social studies. We talk about literacy. I think we should be talking about democratic literacy. I'm very concerned that a lot of our elementary schools, social studies is denied to many, many students. And the research is clear. If we don't start in those early years helping kids understand how they're part of a democratic society and how they can contribute and have a voice, that as they grow older, they will not be engaged citizens. And in today, that for me is a huge, huge issue. We have an election just around the corner. We see work in Florida where people are trying to disenfranchise certain voters. And how in the heck are we ever going to have a society that really does look at equity and justice and the promises of our democracy unless we begin fundamentally in the early grades and all the way through school preparing those students to be the full citizens that they deserve to be in our society. So when we see those policy practices going on in school, we see the craziness of the policies. One of my challenges as a teacher educator is to help them bridge the reality of the policies, but also to be true to their belief about kids, all kids can learn, and what does that really look like and mean, and to have a voice about those policies when they're not good for kids. So while absolutely they need to know how do you do strategies for reading, how do you do strategies for teaching math, how do you help the English language learner, they also have to have that passion to stand up when things aren't going and they know it's not right for kids. And I want them to go beyond just what they might say at their faculty meeting. I want them to be testifying before our state legislature and our school boards and so forth. Because the teacher's voice is really, really important. And I know there are teachers here whose voices are powerful ones in this discussion. And our program at Seattle University is doing that fancy dance of not only giving them the skills, but also that social justice, that belief about why we do the work we do. And those, to me, are really fundamental to our program. And they have a big role ahead as they choose this profession. So I want them to have the moral courage to really stand up for what's right for all kids, no matter what their circumstances are. So that's what we're about in the teacher education program at Seattle University.
Sharon, Okamoto, Seattle Urban Academy. We're right here in this neighborhood near the Othello station. It is our privilege to work with students at our school and in partnership with all the students who have come from public school systems. I know we're aware that not all of our students are graduating, and our focus and our commitment is to those who have dropped out or have been expelled from public school systems. I think something that's very unique about us is this commitment not only to engage our students academically, but also to bring life back to their soul. It hurts me when our students come to us and they have gotten to a place as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, and the messages have come through, you'll never learn, you'll never graduate, I can't wait till you're out of my house. And there's an absence of parents. There's an absence of nurturing guidance. I think at the core, what we're seeing with most of our students is, I don't have identity, I don't know who I am, I've lost a sense of worth.
I don't have a place of belonging, and I don't see a future for myself in the community. So because these are the voices of our students, the components of our school are designed to address, as we mentioned earlier, the emotional well-being of students, a sense of community and belonging. Many of our students consider us their family. And definitely a face of a facet of affirming, recognizing unique strengths, and also recognizing past failure and pain, because all of these things can help to shape each person's passion and their purpose and sense of future. So we're very, very small, and I think this is a gift that we have. We only have 36 students in our school. We have 9 students in a class. We focus on academic intensive care. We're high school, so age 14 through 20, sometimes 21 or even 22. Students are 1 to 7 instructional years behind. So an 11th grader at the 4th grade math or reading, writing skill level. And students who are 1 to 17 credits behind. So that could be a junior who transfers in thinking they were going to graduate the next year, and then learning they only had 3 credits that they passed and they would not be graduating. So I think students know if you come to the school with this low student-teacher ratio, you're going to get the academic intensive focus within your classrooms. In a lot of ways, it's any teacher's ideal, right? Because talk about assessment, we're looking at a lot of individualized formative assessment, national assessments, etc. We're, aside from the academic side, we're very student-centered in our focus. In a school, and this is, I think, one element that leads to success and development, every one of our students knows every one of our staff members because they're in contact with them sometime during the day. And as we know, lots can change from day to day. From the time you said goodbye to them yesterday to the time they walk through the door, there can be a lot of different circumstances that happen. And when students face trauma, neglect, abandonment, or abuse, to have someone they can speak that to and be supported by, I think helps them to come back and re-engage every day. The focus on careers is something else that we are able to integrate. So, going back to a sense of your identity, what do you believe in? What are your passions? We're able to look at career focus. So your academics become a reason that you want to become a mechanic, or you want to become the social worker that made an impact in your life, or you want to pursue marketing or graphics. So because we integrate career focus, career fairs, job shadows, internships for each one of our students, we're building with them a transition plan. So it's not only the credit you need to graduate, where are we going after that? And then for many of our students, they may be the first one in their families to go on to college. That's a lot of new information. The whole process for college admissions, scholarships, etc. So overall, just to say, we're working with students. 91% don't have fathers in their homes. They all face many high risks. They're extremely courageous. They want to be noticed. We're able to affirm them, their value, their worth, and help them build the academic skills, because we want to bring them to a place where for each one of them, college will become a viable option. Maybe just a couple stats. So because our students enter at different times, different years, 96% of our seniors are graduating, and within a year of graduation, 89% are either in higher education or employed. So we're very intentional about planning step by step with our students. And when I see them, graduation's coming up soon, right? So when I see them on that graduation stage, it's a victory for all of us in the community, because every one of our students has this mindset of what am I going to contribute back to our community in my area of passion. And it's very rewarding.
Operating tonight with one microphone. So thank you all for sharing that. Lots of successful things, lots of great stories to share. The next question that we have is, can you also share with us some of the different obstacles that are out there? I'm going to skip on the list that you all have. So some of the obstacles that you all see in being able to reach the success that you feel is possible.
Well, I will try to focus specifically on teachers, because that's obviously the place that I'm coming from. There's a lot of different things that I can suggest and think about, especially as it affects the students that I'm teaching and where they're going and how they got there and how they got to my class, etc. But as a teacher, I would say that in one of the things that I heard Sharon say that I think is really important is that schools are able to basically build their own community by focusing on the students that are in their schools, by focusing on what is the students in my school, in my classroom, what do they need, and then making sure that in my school that's provided for them. And in order to do that, schools need a little more autonomy. I'm not even suggesting a specific amount, but the autonomy to basically focus on this school as a community is going to work in this way, and we're all going to have a shared vision to support the students that we serve, because I'm sure many of you know that there's a lot of different schools in Seattle Public Schools, and they certainly do not all look the same, and therefore not everything is going to work the same in all of those schools. With that said, teachers in a school, I think, are really yearning for professional development that is strong and useful, and right now I'm not so sure we're getting that. So as a teacher in my classroom, I'm a very reflective person, and so I realized that there are certain things that I would like to be stronger at. In order to support me, I need to have a principal who's willing to listen to where I'm at on the professional development ladder, what I think I need, being able to offer those things to me, or being able to find those resources in the district to support me in those things, so that I can really focus on myself as a professional. I've had some conversations about this recently with other teachers and other people about teaching as a profession. We say that, but I'm not so sure that many people actually believe that. If we compare professionals or professions, other businesses, if you take Boeing or doctors or lawyers as part of a firm, they get professional development in order to keep, having successful employees that can really do the job that they're hired for. And although teachers are supposed to, oftentimes the professional development we receive is kind of mandated, or it's not really tailored to the students that we're teaching, or even where we're at as professionals. If I feel I'm a successful math teacher, but I'm not that great at reading, then that's where I should get the support, not some more math. Although, new innovations, I guess, is important as well. And so as a teacher, I say one of the things that's getting in my way is not being able to have the support to really develop as a professional, as I see is important for me and then any of the particular students that I'm serving.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to come from the parent's perspective, and I have 4 things that I see as obstacles. schools from the outside looking in, and one is the school district itself. Teachers, lack of parent involvement, and funding. And so funding, we really don't need to talk about it. We just do not have enough adequate funding for our schools, so that's a huge obstacle for all of us. The district itself, so and as what Marquita was saying, I think that too much is mandated at the district level, and not enough direction comes directly from the school. I feel that the school is closer to the students, and we have different students in all schools, so the needs need to be tailored to the building need and not what the district is mandating. So that's something that needs to stop. I would like to see more decisions come from the schools as opposed to being mandated by the district. Teachers themselves, I feel that teachers are not equipped to work with the kids in the South End in particular. And I think that we need more culturally aware teachers. I think relationships are huge, and that teachers do not have strong enough relationships with the students with whom they teach. And so I would like to see a lot of work being done in that instance. So as was being said down here, a lot of these kids are facing issues that some of us cannot imagine. So, I mean, I could never imagine a kid that may not know where they have to sleep tonight. So how can they concentrate during the day when they don't even know where they're going to sleep at night? I mean, that's a really hard thing, and I think when they're in the classroom, that impacts their learning, and I think oftentimes teachers are not aware of that. And so that's why we need more training for our teachers and more teachers that really get that. These kids are not facing the same things that you faced when you were a kid. And then lack of parent involvement. I truly believe that with partnerships with the parent and the teacher, the kids are going to do better. So I would love to see more parents being involved, but the district has to welcome them, the school has to welcome them, and the teacher has to welcome them. And right now, I do not see that happening in Seattle Public Schools at all. There are very few teachers who are welcoming parents with open arms and figuring out how they can work together to support their students. That's it.
One of the things we know from research that's been done, and we think about high schools, I'm thinking about Rainier Beach High School, or many of our high schools here in Seattle that are huge. There was research done, and probably many of you know about the Small Schools Project, which was to take big comprehensive high schools and break them into small schools. We saw this being experimented with in our area. In fact, there was quite a large Gates Foundation money to support that, and then they jumped ship and kind of left those schools floundering. Making those kinds of changes from a big comprehensive high school into small schools within those high schools takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time on the parts of teachers to come together to say what makes us distinctive within our small schools. But I think what that does is it opens, I mean, one of our challenges in high schools is too often we have these huge numbers of kids that teachers see every day, so it's hard to build the relationships with 150 kids and their parents, which oftentimes can be more than one parent, and two parents, three parents, and so forth. So I love that Seattle School District is talking about schools of innovation. I think we need to start really trusting that we as educators can give us the power to figure these things out. We work with kids every day. I love what you're doing in your school. I mean, there's no reason why we can't make some of those things happen in our public schools. But I'm not sure that teachers are empowered to do those things. And as teachers talk to teachers, they have ideas. But how do we make those ideas happen in the structures within the schools to really invest in our teachers? When they say we need professional development, we ought to listen to what the teachers are saying rather than what a central office person may be saying everybody should do this. Those kind of cookie cutter approaches, I think, really undermines the complexity of schools and the needs that vary from teacher to teacher and school to school and place to place. So I would say we need to rethink those small schools approaches, so teachers get to know children and families over 2 or 3, 4 years where they're in a high school together. I like the statement around grade bands. I think that's a really important message, that not every 3rd grader is going to be at grade level. They will be in a band of learning. Making those kinds of policy statements at the district level to teachers says, one, you recognize that not every kid is at the same place at the same time. 2, it's a powerful message to the child that maybe if I'm not quite measuring up to grade level, I'm still okay. And I think some of the children that go to your school, Sharon, they've gotten caught in some of these policy messages that they're not measuring up. What I say to my students, I don't care what you do, if students aren't engaged, and I mean authentically engaged, it makes no difference. You're trying to teach them reading, writing, anything. They have to be authentically engaged. They have to believe that it's worth their time and effort. And that's a huge switch from powers on high coming down to say, you have to do this, to saying, how do we get kids engaged in authentic learning? Those of us that have had young children or know about young children know that they are eager to learn. Let's not lose that when they enter school. We should capitalize on that eagerness to learn. It's there, it's in all of us. Schools need to find ways to enhance that, not diminish it.
My thought goes to what Jesse said earlier. I think one obstacle is when non-educators set what the expectation and the measurements are. I don't know how we as educators can have a stronger voice rather than, well, one thing being underfunded, right? Then we're looking for other sources to educate our students. But sometimes those sources are outside of education, and we end up chasing, we're needing the money, and then to get the money, you have to follow initiative that is set. And then when a whole building follows the initiative, and it takes years, at least 3 years to understand it, the new measures, matrices, how does that look operationally? And then the grant ended, right? And then you go look for something else. So, how can we get healthier funding on an ongoing basis to get the resources we need to adequately serve our students? I think another is what Margit is saying, is that we tend to think there is one model that we need to apply to all. In the healthcare system, those of us with general good health can get by with a general practice doctor. Our medical costs are not very great, but those who need critical care or intensive care, the medical costs for that person in the OR, in the intensive care unit, and the staffing level that's needed to bring that person to a state of restored health. In the academic setting, I believe it's the same. We're not saying all students need twice as much dollars per youth, but where can we form these models where we can give that customized or extra intensive care and resources to the student to bring them up to where our average students are.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the funding question, because that has come up a lot among you. So the next question is, if you have money, if funding was not an issue, what are 3 things that you would think would be essential funding priorities?
I had to quickly look at my list. I have way more than 3. So here's my 3. Counselors. I have no idea who decided that. So so many of our kids are dealing with so many emotional things. Even if they live a very happy life, they're still growing up. I'm sure many of you remember how emotional that was. And so we don't have any counselors, and yet we're supposed to be serving these students who are living in all these different ways that, like Rita said, it's very difficult for some of us to understand. And so that's why we have counselors. And so we need to bring those back. And so that's what one of the funding programs would be, is making sure that every school, especially those where we still have health counselor available for all the students. So that's one of them. Another one is ELL endorsements for every single teacher, because I'm sure some of you have noticed, especially because we're here at Rainier Beach, is that our immigrant population is increasing. And many of those students do not come in kindergarten, first, second grade to benefit from those early learning programs that we're spending so much money on now. They're coming in fourth, fifth, they're coming in middle school, they're coming in high school, and there's all kinds of studies that show that it takes many years, no matter how strong your teacher is or how strong your education is, to get that academic language in there and actually succeed on things like science and math. And so we need to have teachers that are ready to work with those students in a general ed classroom, which is at this point in Seattle Public School, that's our policy, is that we have an inclusion program. So the teachers need to be able to work with all the students in their class, including the ELL students. Just a little anecdote, I have a student who came about 2 months ago and has been in America for, I don't know, at the time, less than 3 months, and she's still learning English in my class right now. And you can just imagine teaching like essay writing and long division and fractions and science. It gets quite tricky trying to make sure that she is learning at a fourth grade level, because she is a fourth grade student, and yet somehow navigating the fact that she can't understand 90% of what I'm saying. So that's another one, is making sure that all teachers have an ELL endorsement. And then my last one is a one-on-one tutor for the most struggling students, particularly those that are more than 2.5 years behind. There's some data that shows that with certain programs, certain strategies, we can get a student who's 2 years behind up to speed within 1 year. So there's a possibility. I think a lot more needs to be researched on what those strategies are, so that teachers are really using them. But beyond that, it's very difficult to bring a student up that fast, and thinking about the range of skills that we have in a classroom. I love working one-on-one with my kids. I can tell they're all eager to learn, but I'm one person, and at this point, 3 years in, I have less and less support, less parents who can actually be there, even if they wanted to, less IAs provided by the district to support me in my classroom, and most of the time they go to primary grades anyway. And so there's me just hopping around. It's like, oh, let me teach you division. Let me help you with this paragraph. And they all love it. I love it too, but there's only one of me. And so when I have a student that's so far behind, they're still learning if I can work with them. But then what is all the rest of the students doing? And how much time am I spending with that one student? So one-on-one tutoring for students who are that far behind, we're really in the classroom helping them, get the skills and strategies to improve that fast with the rest of the class.
So my three, the first one definitely is smaller class sizes. So then you can hop around and do all of that.
I do too. I still hop around.
So I just really think we need smaller class sizes so that students can get the more one-on-one. And particularly since they're all at different levels and they have different needs, I just think it makes it so hard for a teacher to have a large class and be able to serve the needs. And so now listening to Marquita, we need to make sure that we have IAs in all of our classrooms so that the teachers have the support that they need. The other thing at the high school level, career counselors, that was cut out of the budget, and that's a very important thing. I mean, there's no one here to help our kids make that next step after high school. So I would like to see career counselors come back to the high schools, and we need counselors, just period. We need more counselors to deal with the day-to-day issues that some of our kids are dealing. And I know, like you said, only three, but I'm going to give a fourth one, and that is our extended day, because our kids need so much extra learning time that I would like to see extra extended day here at our high school.
I can't add much more other than to say ditto. Maybe what we've talked about generally is the ongoing professional development that needs to be just routinely part of the work we do as educators, that we have opportunities to refresh and relearn and rethink and come together as educators to say, how can we get better at the work we do? And it really has to be a two-way street. It has to come from the teachers themselves and consultation with administrators and leaders in the school district. But we've really kind of put professional development as a very heavy-handed, oftentimes fairly punitive kind of development. And I think that teachers need to have a voice in what they need to help them to be better. And I worry a lot about the kind of atmosphere that we create when it's always from on high, telling teachers what they must do. And I worry a lot with this new assessment system coming down the road, whether that really will help teachers be the best they can be. And so I think the jury's out on that one.
For us, well, how many of you have been in the Union Gospel Mission building? That's where our school is. We would like more facility space, so that's one thing. We want to be able to offer a few more courses. Right now we are meeting credits for high school graduation, and some of the students are going on to four-year universities, but we want to be able to offer all courses to meet four-year university college admission requirement. We've been very blessed to have a high-caliber staff, so continuing to have that, I think, is important for all schools. 75% of our staff have master's degree. We have one PhD and a Juris Doctorate, and someone else starting law school this fall. I think keeping and retaining a staff over the years is very critical for the sense of relationship and community. For us, our teachers make less than what our state public school teachers are making, and I would love to honor our teachers with similar. We will probably never have a retirement program that our public school counterparts are able to have, but to honor them with equitable pay for the work that they're doing is something else that I think is important.
So the final question for the panelists is help us understand as parents and community members what we should be advocating for. What can we do? What should we be focused on in our effort?
Well, first off, I would say parents should advocate on helping other parents parent students. I do a lot of work in my class to build certain classroom skills or student skills, but sometimes my students go home and their home life is very different for a variety of reasons. But some of the issues that I have is that some parents are still learning how to help a student be a student. Not necessarily love their child or nurture their child or want the best for their child, none of that question at all, but being able to say, here's what it means to help with homework, or here's why it's important to have a systematic time every day after school to really focus on your work, or here's how we're going to help this child extend their learning. If they're talking about this thing in class, maybe we can go on an outing on the weekend, or just have a conversation about it at home over dinner, or whatever it is. And so parents who know how to do that or have learned how to do that, helping other parents do that would be really helpful. Also, just generally being more involved. I see at my school, like I said, it's a diverse group of students, and we've had a lot of challenges getting the parents of color, or the parents who are the parents of the children of color, to be involved. I know one of the things that my principal tried to do, when he noticed that we had a huge Latino parent population who were hanging around but didn't really seem to feel welcomed with the PTA or any other group that was doing work, he said, well, how about we just form, at least initially, a Latino parent-teacher group, just at our school, but something to get them starting to be more involved, learning about things, having an opinion, so that eventually maybe we can merge the two and they both feel welcome together. And so now we see a lot more Latino mothers around and being part of the school and starting to, meet other parents and things like that. And so if we can kind of have a place that's welcome, even if initially that means not necessarily forcing merging, but just having places where people feel comfortable participating somewhere or another, I think that would be extremely helpful in the schools. And also, one kind of oddball out there. So public schools tend to be trying to get money from the state, or we're always underfunded, or we have levies and things like that. A lot of other nonprofits and other places have grant writers. Now I know that there's some parents who, in one way or another, either have the time to learn how to do it, or possibly are already doing it in their businesses or somewhere else. Volunteering to find grants and grant writing for either their community school or another school that they're interested in would be remarkable. You can just imagine some of the programs that we're able to provide if that was something that a parent would be willing to do and had an invested interest in that. So that's an oddball out there, but it's possible.
So one thing is I think that we need to advocate for more school days. I'm not sure, I think we're maybe like 17th on the list when we go by countries as the number of days that our kids actually go to school. So I think we do need longer school year. And also advocate for more time for the teachers to spend in the classroom. I feel that the teachers are taken out of the classroom way too much, and that takes time away from the kids' learning opportunity. And then, of course, we need to advocate for more resources.
I want to tell you a story about an experience I had a couple years ago. I write curriculum in social studies, my passion. So I asked the kindergarten teacher in Seattle schools, and I won't identify the school because I don't want her to get in trouble. I said, do you want to pilot this curriculum with me? I want to see how it works with kids. And we were I was looking at how do we help kindergartens do that integrated learning with a strong social studies focus. And so this was a highly diverse school, special needs, English second language. And we took the theme of, we're going to be a soup company. And you think, oh, kindergarten kids, can they do this? So we put the premise forward that they were going to be invited to be workers in a soup company. And we then began to think about what does it take to have a soup company? And we introduced academic language about supply and demand. Think about this for 5-year-olds, second language children, special needs children. We designed our soup company and the various rooms and jobs and tasks that would be needed. We brought in some of the equipment that you would use in the soup company, simple things like measuring cups and spoons and all of these kinds of things. And then we thought about what does it mean to be a worker in a soup company. So they imagined themselves in the job with all the language and writing and applied for a job, and we did job interviews and so forth. And we had to decide what we were going to call our soup company, which was pretty fun because they had very interesting names of one kind and another. But we ended up with the Yummy Tummy Soup Company. And then we had to decide what could we eat, and what kind of soup would we make. And these were children, many of them immigrant children, many from many different backgrounds. So that opened up a whole discussion about, well, what kind of soup do we eat at home? And of course we had everything from Campbell soup to homemade soups of various cultures. So we talked a lot about that, and then we decided we were going to make our own soup. But we had to be taste testers to decide the best soup. So we had a day of soup taste testing, and then we designed our soup, which, as it turns out, in a classroom that's highly diverse with allergies and different traditions and so forth, the soup that we could all eat with no worries, was vegetable soup. So here we are in a low-income school, lots of different kids. So we said, we'll bring a vegetable to school. Now I envisioned that we might get a potato, a carrot, maybe an onion. But the parents got so excited about this, we had bags of potatoes, boxes of carrots. I mean, we could have fed the whole school. So we made soup. Now here's a school where you would think, well, parents aren't going to be involved. But of course, the kids were going home every day, talking about being workers in a soup company, doing the reading and writing associated with that. So we decided that we were going to have the grand opening of our young and coming soup company. And there was a great deal of excitement. And we were a little concerned that maybe every child should have someone come to sample their soup. And they had 5th grade buddies, so we ensured that everybody was going to have a 5th grade buddy. So we were having our grand opening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Every single child had at least one parent for the grand opening. Now, the reality is for low-income parents at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to find a way to be there is no small task. But because parents were engaged with their children talking about soup, because they had been part of that discussion both at home and activities going home for kids to engage their parents in, there was a great deal of enthusiasm. And these are the kinds of lessons that I would advocate for that really open up possibilities for parents to be authentically engaged in the work they do with their children in schools. So you can imagine the pride and excitement. And the teacher, I said to the teacher, this is okay, right? Because we're not doing that kind of reading, writing, drill, and kill all day long. And she said, well, I just told my principal, don't worry about it. But she was a seasoned teacher, and she basically said to me, I'm flying under the radar. My kids are learning. My principal leaves me alone, pretty much lets things go. But we had a highly engaging kind of lesson, series of lessons, where parents were involved, kids were engaged, and didn't make any difference if they were quote-unquote at grade level or not. They all had a very rich and valuable experience. We need more of these kinds of things going on in schools, because these are the things that are going to counter some of the kids that are ending up in Sharon's school, where they're feeling that they don't have a lot of worth or value, or that they're capable. And that's our job. We have to help them be capable. So what can parents do is obviously be engaged, but I think the other role for parents is to have a voice about the national craziness and the state craziness around policy. And I can make one more kind of statement because I cannot resist. I think parents have to say enough of this Teach for America stuff. If we are professionals, you cannot allow people coming into schools with 6 weeks of work. I don't care how engaged they are or committed they are. They have to know something about teaching, and they have to come for the long haul. So they invest in our communities, stay in our communities, and learn how to be teachers. And 6 weeks, I'm just appalled in our schools that this is even on the table. And I have to ask, why would we as a profession allow this? We wouldn't allow it in any other profession. For crying out loud, my hairdresser has more than 6 weeks before she starts to cut my hair. So, to me, these are the kinds of policy issues that when I, as an educator, say it's all about self-interest, but it's about your kids who are getting teachers who are well-meaning. I have no doubt about that. I think they believe that they can make a difference. But I think that if we are a profession, then we have to set some standards of expectation about who comes in and who stays. And that's all of our jobs. And your voice as parents is absolutely essential in this.
Echoing remarks made earlier, think for us, setting out clear expectations on the academic side and then coaching and working with our students until they show evidence of mastery, inviting parents in to see their student work, hear them present their senior research, and sometimes it's not really parent, but it's another youth worker in the community or someone else, in their family. Recognition, public recognition, and frequent recognition, I think is very important. And so I should mention this about our school. We only exist because of the community. We only ask our students to pay $175 a quarter, and that brings in 2% of our revenue. So 98% of what we use to run our school is from the community. People, other adults who are committed to stand by our courageous youth until they make it and graduate and can go on to a future with hope. In a tangible way, day to day, we do serve lunch every day. So community partners to sign up to bring lunch or restaurants, what have you, because lunch becomes the one full and good meal that our students have during the day. And then the last area for us would be career connections with people out in just diverse careers that our students that our youth can go job shadow. I think of one student who thought he wanted to be a dentist, and we set him up for a summer. Actually, he could work in a dentist's office. We came back in the fall. How was it? I don't like the sight of blood. He is a youth who had dropped out. So I have to say, as a parent of the Seattle Public School, I have two daughters who graduated from Seattle Public Schools, Hawthorne, Washington, Garfield. And I have to admit that the students who were not fully being served and supported, I was very ignorant and unaware of 30-something years ago. Or I'm not that old, 30 years ago, when they were in school. But this young man who did the dental internship, when he came to enroll in our school, just very heavy in spirit. And his father basically dragged him to our school. He had been expelled out of his third school. And this was like his father's last desperate attempt to try to keep his son in school. He was only 16 at the time. When I saw him, I said, I know you from Hawthorne. And when he was in second grade, my daughter was in second grade. And as we got to know each other, I learned stories that I was unaware of when I was a parent in the school. Right? So basically, one note is parents become aware of all the children in our building. Notice them. So he said, we didn't have food often. We often didn't have food or heat in the house. My mom was dating this guy from a gang in Compton. He got mad, he set our truck on fire. Just lots of different things that were going on in the household, which, yeah, he just spent more and more time out on the streets and not in school. He started doing well, and one thing I remember him saying when he was in Dr. Friedman's history class, he reflected, he says, I remember now when I was a child, I liked to watch the news. I liked to learn. And his siblings always was trying to channel to watch the cartoons. But it had been years since he had realized, I love to learn. And then he stopped coming to school because one of his friends was shot at the Rainier playfield. He was also a graduate from our school. And that really sunk him into a deeper depression. I know I could be going on a side tangent, but all has to do with relationships of people in the community over the years to track and continue to reignite and engage a youth in their own life. So I crossed paths with him one summer, and it had been months, and I had hoped that he would re-enroll. So we got together, and his reflection was, the streets only lead to incarceration and death. Education is the only way out. So I said, please re-enroll. He finished in '05, worked continuously from then to this day at UPS, and then went to community college and finished that in 4 or 5 years. And he's in his final quarter at UW, graduating in social work. And he said, I saw the impact one adult made in my life. I want to do the same for youth in our community. So I think as we all come around and notice
I'm a middle-class parent. My children went to Martin Luther King Elementary School and Montlake Elementary School when it was really diverse, and Washington Middle School and Garfield and Noms. And I think I really appreciated that when my kids were in school, they really were in integrated schools. And both my husband and I had that good fortune in our growing up years, being in integrated schools and seeing the value of that. And I wanted that for my kids. I did not want them to be in a school where I felt they were isolated with only one kind of kid, which I know that's speaking in broad generalizations. So for me to really speak to the celebration of the diversity of Seattle, I was sad to see the busing end. As a kid, I lived in a farm. I was bused every day for 45 minutes to an hour, both ways. So I guess I'm not too sympathetic when people say, have to take a bus to get to school. I just thought that was we gave up on that busing too soon. And I just, we had today at Seattle University, we had some students from Garfield that came to work. They worked with our MIT students, and they had done a service learning project, and it was around understanding the civil rights movement in Seattle. And so there were a mixed group of kids that presented about what they learned about that. And they were quite surprised about some of the prejudice of long ago in Seattle, which I thought was a very important lesson for them to learn. But I asked them, they were talking about Garfield's lunchroom where kids all sit they were all over the map on that. But what I've noticed from my own children in school is they had a wide range of friends. And I think Seattle offers that for us, and I think it's something we ought to celebrate. And we talk about good things in the school district. I think those are the things, we learn so much from each other. And that's the way the world is, and it's only going to be more like that. So we may as well start while we're young and maybe a little more accepting than when we get older.
Take a question from the audience.
Hi, I have a question for Sharon. You were talking about the initiatives, the process of initiatives, the funding, and then the grants running out. Can you, like over 2 or 3 years, and can you expand on that? Because I don't really know much about that.
First of all, can everyone hear the question? Audience, would you mind repeating that, or do you want me to repeat it?
Well, the question was, give some examples of initiatives that have been rolled out and then for a set period of time and then the funding ending. Well, we mentioned the small school initiative. I think, so sometimes there's a theory that's put out there from non-educators. Not that I don't believe in small schools, obviously. But then by the time you have to do your performance measures to even prove academic achievement and growth, then the funding ends. I've been talking with a teacher from to meet certain funding, you have to have X amount of AP courses taught, right? I don't know the specifics of it. So they placed a first-year teacher teaching AP, but then it's with a group of students whose skill levels are still at more like middle school level. But she's going to be, her performance will be gauged on the AP test course, but the school signed up for these extra funds under the premise of meeting XYZ expectations. I don't know if that.
So the problem is that the initiatives come from non-educators?
Oh.
There are some.
And I think one of the cards, and this may be a question that we may ask our school district members here, or school board members rather, to answer this, although the panelists can do as well, is the question is, how does the Seattle School District distribute funds? Do 100 students at Rainier Beach High School receive the same funding as 100 at a school in a higher income area?
Here's one of the things that I find most interesting. Even if we have some sort of equation that says here's the equitable way of distributing public funds or money from the state, we are totally ignoring the PTA money that comes in. Oh my goodness, I went to high school, and this has stamped my brain because certainly when I watched the funds dwindle over the last 3 years at my public school, I went to a high school where I remember being there and so astonished when the PTA showed up with literally a $2 million check for our school. Now I know that's extreme, I know that it is. But then I go to my school, and we 3 years ago had 20,000 as our parent raise. This year, we haven't even reached 5,000. And so it's just going down and down and down. Now, even if the school district still says, okay, but you're Title I, you have low-income school, you're a student, so we're going to try to make that equitable. It's a complete ignoring what the community of those schools can provide, not only in the form of funds, which the schools can use to do whatever they want to do with it, but also in the form of services. How many more parents are able to tutor? I don't have tutors. I would love tutors, parents, anybody, just tutors. And so we have schools that have the funds to hire tutors, and we have parents who are coming to tutor. So we're totally ignoring these extra resources that these schools have. And so just because the school district may somehow use some equations to be equitable, it's still missing the point.
And
equation that issues is broken, and it does not spread the dollars equitably. And so we really need to work on that at the district level, because it is a huge problem.
Thank you for the comments. Can someone describe though, just for the sake of description, how the district makes its decisions around funding for students? As less technical and brief as possible.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't be too detailed. We have something called the weighted staffing standard in the public schools. And it's a very complex equation. And actually, students in low socioeconomic schools are funded at a higher level. There's Title I money, and which is federal, and there's state money that's Learning Assistance Program. However, there's this other phenomenon they call the donut hole in the Seattle schools. If the students at this in this low economic school do really well, and the level of the school rises, then they no longer qualify for some of the extra funding. So it's just a real dead end. And we do come back. I mean, the thing I keep looking at is the community money that is available to some schools that's not available to others.
I just want to add one thing, and that is that our funding is being cut everywhere, in every school, at every level. Everybody's hurting. And there is not a school in the district that has adequate funding. We're losing guidance counselors, we've already lost all the other kind of counselors, we're losing teachers, and this all goes to our state legislators. So that's who you talk to about the funding.
I have a question, but a really short comment first. This is my 6th year working with the school districts. I'm an instructional assistant and physical therapist assistant in special education. So, Marquita, where you said, how did it happen that we lost counselors? 2 years ago in March or April, there was a what's called a work meeting where the school board meets. And then President Steve Sundquist and current President Michael DeBell proposed that elementary school counselors, where the weighted staffing standards were a half-time counselor in every elementary school, would move from the staffing standards to discretionary. And therefore, your point, schools that could produce PTA money to keep their counselors kept their counselors. Schools that could not, did not.
Same thing with libraries now. Librarians are now 0.5, so if I have funds at my school, then we can have a full-time librarian.
So the reason I brought that up is I wanted to point out, these are people with names and power. Steve Sundquist, who has defeated Michael DeBell, who is currently there. Now my question is, do any of the 4 panelists understand that the innovation schools, the technical term is the creative schools, and that in the memorandum of understanding it says it has to be cost neutral. So a school with no PTA money that becomes a creative approach school, where's the money going to come from? It's going to come from foundation money with strings attached.
And so your question?
My question is, do you understand that the big-time PTA can do a creative approach? A PTA that raises $5 grand, what can they do?